Well, good evening, everyone. This is Kennard Levy Brown speaking. I'm your host for the Merciful Servants of God Biblical Instructional Program on YouTube. I am thinking about getting my podcast started up again because you know what? I got time to do it now. My 12 years of school hell is over with. I don't participate or anticipate and participate rather, or together, ever taking college courses again. I think the only time I'll ever take another college course is if it's required by a university that I'm teaching for or whatever, But other than that, and they're going to pay for it too. But other than that, I have no desire to write the way you have to write scholastically. It's called APA, and it's just hell writing that way. I like the creative write. And right now I am getting back into writing that book I've been telling people about for how many years, Cherie? I think since 2013. So hopefully I've been getting all these distractions so I can say finally I don't have any more distractions that I could foresee. So hopefully I'll get this book done. I'm hoping by the end of December, if not earlier. So just be praying that I finally get it. It's going to help the ministry, and more important than that, it's going to help reach more people and help them in an easy way. I can easily say Hebrew, talk Hebrew, write Hebrew words and all that. But, when you're trying to reach the entire planet, you got to write in the language that most people in the planet understands. And it certainly isn't Hebrew, unfortunately. It's English. The top languages of the UN is English. You have Chinese, believe it or not, Chinese, Spanish, and French. So those are the top languages, I think, that are endorsed. I may have left one out. That's endorsed as the official world languages. And so it's important to communicate in a language that most people understand. This ministry has that policy. I know we've been criticized because we use Merciful Servants of God, and people have their opinions, and that's all they are about the word God. And even Jewish people use the word God. A lot of them, what they do when they write God, they put a line through the O. But some don't even do it. Some actually just use the name God. So God is just the equivalent of Elohim, the Hebrew word Elohim. Yeah, and another thing, I'll be getting back into my biblical Hebrew studies and complete those so I could actually take a Bible that is written in Hebrew and just read it like I read English. So that's I'm looking forward to doing that. There's a lot of things that I'm looking forward to do, but I think that the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to do is to grow this ministry. When I mean grow the ministry, reach more people. And I talk about money, but more important than that is to reach more people with this free message of the gospel, whether they're Jews or Gentiles. And another thing I wanted to, I didn't do this last week, but I need to do this week. Let me see. Let me put my glasses on here and see who's here. Okay. Got Jake. And then my wife is here. And then Gail. Oh, it's a new person, Gail. Shabbat Shalom, Mishpach. Okay. All right, Gail. And then you have Devorah. Yeah, that was a good pick. That's what I'm doing now. Certainly helps YouTube channel increase views, I guess. But when you have pictures, just a picture that describes what you're talking about, I think that's more effective than putting all goobity glook on there, So it's just because people are more visual today. And another thing too, now I have the time to finally read this book on YouTube marketing and implement it. And I have all these videos. God has given me all I need to grow this ministry. And he knew he wanted to reward me for, and he'll do this for anyone, for putting him first. And, I gave up my computer science degree several years ago when I was 20 years old. And it was kind of like I was describing to my wife. It was kind of like this little man running, and he had a computer science degree. It's like, ha, you can't get it. You can't get it. So that's what I felt like, because every time I was trying to do it, some other obstacle came in the way. And so God had a better plan for me. And I decided to go ahead later on. I finally had the time and the resources to get finally a computer related degree. And I was actually taking this degree along with trying to get my doctorate, which, I couldn't believe I was doing, but God must have done something to help me do it. And so eventually my doctorate degree got so intense that I had to stop the master's degree program and just focus on that. And then once I got the doctorate degree, then I got back to the master's degree and completed it. And the thing about the master's degree in IT, it covers, it's a well-rounded degree. It covers programming, it covers really all facets of technology. And so actually it's a better degree, in my opinion, of the computer science degree that I would have gotten back during the time I was a young man. So it's I feel good. I feel relieved and celebrated a little bit, and now it's back to work. It's back to focusing on God's work first, or Yodevahe's work, everything else second. And I know he kind of mercifully gave me a pardon, but I know if I don't get this book soon, I know I'm going to get it. So I got to get to work on the book. So just be praying I get it done soon so that I don't get it. So I'm looking forward to it. And thank you, Deborah. And I tell you, that's it. No more, I teach for this university now, as a tutor. And that's that. I'm going to teach college courses now instead of taking them. So that's that. And I do it on a part-time basis. I found the hard way that Yodevahe wants me to work opportunities that don't get in the way of ministry. But I can get a sense now, especially the way things are going in this crazy world right now, that I got to get on this book, get it done as quick as possible. Just be praying I can get it done. And the good news is with this this income opportunity I have with the school, Texas Christian University, I have a 1 week off from tutoring, and then I have a whole month off from December 16th to January 16th. So in that time, I'm going to use that to hopefully get this book done finally. Well, I hope to get the book done before the end of December, but some other things I need to do too to help grow the ministry and also eventually be in a position to help other people out. So just be praying all these things happen, because the devil doesn't want me to help people. He doesn't want me to help people spiritually or physically or any other way. And just be praying that Yodevahe provides an open door for me to preach this gospel that hardly anyone understands to as many people as possible. And certainly the internet is a viable vehicle for that. And so getting back to preaching the gospel in different languages, there's a tool called Bible.is. Bible.is. If you look that application up online, it's an incredible software program online, and it has thousands of biblical languages. The Bible, the audio version of it, is in different types of languages. I remember when I was living in this condo back where we used to live at, we had some people come over. We ran ads, and then people would respond to them. Then we would have some people come to our condo. But this one particular family came, and then his wife, she was, I think she was a Filipino or something. She was not a Caucasian, but she was a different type of race, which is no problem with God, no problem with me. And she wanted to hear it in a different language. And I said, okay, well, I have this application where you can actually listen to the Bible in your own language. And so I was able to find it. And she was so overjoyed to be able to hear that in her language. And so I bring that example up to tell you that, God, sure, in all likelihood, Edenic, that's what it's really called. Edenic language, which is a derivative of Hebrew. More than likely, that is the language of heaven, or the language that Yodevahe speaks. However, he created the different languages. Let's understand that in Genesis chapter 11, he's responsible for all these different languages that we have. And so remember in Acts chapter 2, what happened? Did he say everyone must speak Hebrew? No. You had Jewish people coming there, and they were used to speaking different languages, Greek, all kinds of languages all around the world. And so he had given some of the apostles, or some people think it was some of the apostles, but it may have been all of them, I don't know. But they were speaking different languages miraculously, and they received that. And my question to people who get into the sacred name thing, and you got to say Yeshua all the time and all that, my question to you is this: if God felt Hebrew was that important, then why did he give the apostles the ability to speak in different languages? Okay. Now, I'm not saying that Hebrew isn't important, but it's not as important as what people think. What's important is that you have God's Holy Spirit in you. When you have God's Holy Spirit in you, no language can trump the amount of information that you will receive from God miraculously through his teachers on how to understand the true Yod-Heh, or he's commonly known as God today by many people around the world. And that word God is translated in different languages where people understand Yehovah, or and I very seldom say his name, out of respect, but I say Yod-Heh, so and that may be Yehovah may be the closest we get to pronouncing his name. I'm not saying that's the right way to do it, but that may be the closest based on my studies. And so we need to focus on the deeds, not so much the language that represents those deeds, but the deeds. And that's what we need to do. Because Yod-Heh, he likes variety. He created the different types of human race. There's one race, the human race, but there's different types. And so he created the languages. And they all are derived from Edenic language. I have a book that actually proves that all languages, the foundation is Hebrew. And so I encourage anybody, if you want to study Hebrew, do it. I do it. I'm going to study Greek as soon as I master Hebrew. And the sole purpose of that, I want to become my own concordance. I don't want to have to go look up concordances, so I would like to become my own concordance. And also I would like to speak to my fellow Jewish brethren, all right, in the language that they understand. And so just like Paul said, to win over a Jew, I'm paraphrasing it, become like a Jew, right? Well, I have a desire to do that. And so I do have a Messianic congregation that I'm going to start to attend again occasionally to reach a common ground with their erroneous teaching. And I hope they are listening to this, because, hey, you're about to get corrected, and I don't care. In other words, I don't care if you don't like it, but I do care if you listen and change. But you guys are teaching, and you know who you are, that only Jews can keep the Sabbath and the holy days. All right. And you came up to me and asked me, how much Torah should a Gentile keep? I love that question. So, all right. You're right, Gail. We're going to go over that today. Yeah, Devorah, whether you stay or not, that's up to you. We're reaching not only you, but a lot of other people. So that's what this program is for. Is to reach everyone. So if you want to stay and listen, that's fine. If not, then hey, that's you. All right. So anyway, what else I was getting ready to say? We're going to go over the Torah portions today, and we're going to go over Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay. And another thing that I don't think too many people understand the purpose of this ministry, so I'm going to explain it to you. Every ministry has a characteristic. Ours is to reach as many people as possible with the true gospel of the kingdom of God, to help people understand the Bible in a simple way. It's not to convert everybody over to saying mastering Hebrew. That's not our purpose. Our purpose is to reach people that want to know who the true Jesus, and I don't have a problem saying Jesus or Yeshua. Sure, there's a difference between the two in most cases, because most Christians, when they say Jesus, they're thinking about a Jesus that said Sunday was okay, it's okay to eat pork and all that. But some people may not realize that there's some people that are Christians that say Jesus, they don't say Yeshua, but they also understand that this Jesus commands us to keep the Sabbath, the holy days, and not to eat pork. Okay. And so there's few of those Christians, but those Christians do exist that call him Jesus, but yet they understand that this Jesus that they call Jesus is the true Jesus or Yeshua of the Bible that commands everyone to keep the commandments to the best of their abilities, which includes the Sabbath, the holy days, and avoiding unclean meats. Okay. So, but most people, when they think of Jesus, they think of a Jesus who had real long hair, all right, that looked kind of weak, all right, that they don't even know whether or not he was a Jew or not, and so forth. So that certainly is a false Jesus. But you have a true Jesus and you have a false Jesus. And in some cases, you can have a true Yeshua and a false Yeshua. Some people are using the name Yeshua, and they're not honoring that name and what it represents properly by teaching false doctrine under that name. So you got to be careful about that too. You know, the devil's very tricky, folks, and you got to be very aware of what he does. All right. And the Bible, whether it's written in the King James Version or some other versions, as long as a word from word translation and you know how to decipher and look those original words up, you're okay. You're okay as far as using the King James or some other translation. I'm not a King James only person. I do use other translations, but I use the King James as a foundation because most people are familiar with the King James Version when they are starting out into this. But, you know, I can easily use other translations, but I want to be a true teacher. No matter what you're teaching, their purpose is to make things clear, of clarity, not to make things that is confusing and to give a type of sense of superiority in your knowledge and all this other stuff, you know. So that's not being a true teacher. A true teacher should be humble. Their whole purpose is to help you to understand what they're saying. And, you know, a true teacher also is still a student in the sense of where when they're preparing their teachings, they're reinforcing what they already know, and it should become a deeper understanding of what they're teaching. And so that's the main thing. And now to get to the purpose of this ministry, because I think some people are a little confused about what we do. And let me just explain. We have a group called the Merciful Servants of God Meetup group. Very few people are in that group because to be in that group, you have to be someone who is really devoted and want to really change and want to support this ministry. And I'm not just talking about financially. Okay. Of course, we don't force you to give, but we certainly, if you become a part of the Merciful Servants of God group, we expect you to support us. Just like the Bible says, a minister should expect that. And so we do the best we can to have people in that group that want to support us, whether it is, you know, through prayers, certainly financially too, although we don't force that and endorse that for you to be involved. But we also expect for you to listen to us and to share our teachings with other people. But if you don't want to do that, or you feel that it's going to cause conflict, or you're ashamed or whatever, then my question to you, if you are on our group, and you guys know who you are, this, you know, if you're doing this, then why are you a part of the group? If you feel ashamed about what I'm teaching, or you feel uncomfortable that somebody else doesn't like it, but you like it, that doesn't make sense. And so if you're comfortable with another ministry and you're listening to that ministry, then maybe you should focus on that other ministry, you know? And so that's what you need to do in regards to that. So many times, you know, I get people that, I've got a few people anyway, they're interested more in getting something from me than giving, you know, and that is, you got to check yourself on that one. Okay. Anybody, even these worldly ministries, the people in the congregation, they certainly support their ministers and so forth. So why is it an anomaly for me to desire to be supported by people who are in the Merciful Servants of God group? Now, most people, though, they choose to be in my Facebook group. And the Facebook group are people that, you know, They're like, hey, well, I listen to you, when I feel like it, and I don't want to support you, but hey, I love that free teaching. And so those are the kind of people that are in the Facebook group. All right, because I can't make people support the ministry. I can't make people listen to these videos and get true teachings that will change their lives. I can't do that. So, but certainly I'm not going to turn them away because they don't want to support the ministry and so forth. Because Yodevahe wants his message to be transmitted to everyone so they can make up their own minds what they want to do. So anyway, the Facebook group is for those who are non-committal, don't want to commit, and they just want to listen to me maybe a few times and then whatever. So that's the major bulk of the people. That's where they go. They go to the Facebook group. And so the Meetup group is for people who are really serious about me discipling them, and they have confidence in what I teach, and they believe what I'm teaching. And this is different than the Facebook group, people who may or may not have confidence in what I'm teaching, but they certainly don't want to support the ministry, but they want free this and free that. So that's the Facebook, that's the group for those people who don't want to really support the ministry and so forth, but they have a great desire for free teachings and so forth. And either or, we still provide free teachings. The difference with the Merciful Servants of God Meetup group is that we expect, just like the Bible says we expect the people who want to make a decision to be discipled by us to support the ministry, spiritually, of course, through your prayers, giving offerings, and also sharing our teachings with other people that that may be interested, or sharing it on your Facebook page. And so if you're the least bit ashamed of that, or you're uncomfortable with that, then maybe you shouldn't be in the group. So that's something that you need to really think about if you're in that situation. So anyway, I just wanted to explain that. Okay, so let me continue on here. I happily brought Michael. I happily brought Michael. What do you mean by that? You mean Michael Rood, or? All right. Okay, let me continue on here. Let's get on with the study here. Oh, Michael. Okay. That's good. Okay, I appreciate that. Thought you were talking about Michael Rood. Okay. And so, yeah, for those who really care enough about doing it, please, and if you think this message, what I teach helps you and so forth, and if you think your friends would be interested, pass. You have my YouTube channel. Pass is free. There's no obligation. Pass it on. That's what we're supposed to do. True ministers of God should encourage people who are responsive to the message to pass the message on to other people. When you don't want to do that, then I have to question why are you listening to me? if you're ashamed or don't want to pass it on to other people, But anyway, Vayera, okay, which means and he appeared. So Yodevahe reveals himself to Abraham 3 days after the first Jews. Okay, he wasn't. Let's clarify this. Abraham was not the first Jew. Any Jew, if they want to be honest, will tell you that he wasn't the first Jew. The first Jew was Yehuda or Judah. Okay. Of the tribe of Judah. So anyway, he is the first Hebrew. I guess you can say that. He was the first Hebrew. Okay. Circumcision at age 99. So at 99, he was circumcised. But Abraham rushes off to prepare a meal for 3 guests who appear in the desert heat. One of the 3, who are angels disguised as men, announces that in exactly 1 year, the barren Sarah will give birth to a son. Sarah laughs. So here we go. And sometimes we all have a tendency to be this way toward God. We don't believe that he can do whatever he wants to do. And he's a miracle worker. All right. And so Sarah doubted that. That's why she laughed. All right. So Abraham pleads with God to spare the wicked city of Sodom. I'm going to go over that today because there's some prophecy in that. 2 of the 3 disguised angels arrived in the doomed city, where Abraham's nephew Lot extends his hospitality to them and protects them from the evil intentions of the Sodomite mob. Most people, when they think of Sodom, they think about homosexuality. But ladies and gentlemen, the sins of Sodom and Gomorrah is much more than homosexuality. And so we're going to get into that today. And unfortunately, the country of America and the Western nations and other nations around the world, they unfortunately commit these sins on a consistent basis. But anyway, the sins of Sodom. Anyway, the 2 guests reveal that they have come to overturn the place and to save Lot and his family. Lot's wife turns into a pillar of salt when she disobeys the command not to look back at the burning city as they flee. And, Yeshua talked about this, and maybe we'll get into that later on today, when he was talking about a prophecy referring to the start of the Great Tribulation. And one of the things that he mentioned remembers Lot's wife. Well, I don't know if people really see what he was saying there, but he's saying don't be rebellious like Lot's wife. Lot's wife was told not to look back, and what did she do? She looked back anyway. And so what Yeshua is telling us to do, first of all, don't be rebellious against authority. Number 2, don't allow the Great Tribulation events, if you are fortunate enough to be alive when all these things happen, to cause you to lose your mind or lose control and do not what you're told. All right. And so Lot's wife turns into a pillar of salt when she disobeys a command not to look back at the burning city as they flee. So that's why Yeshua stated in Luke, remember Lot's wife. And so while taking shelter in a cave, Lot's 2 daughters, believing that they and their father are the only ones left alive in the world, get their father drunk. And so they did this out of ignorance. That's why Yodevah pardoned him. But hey, this is where we get the Moabites from, which, by the way, Ruth was a Moabite. Live with him and become pregnant. The 2 sons born from this incident fathered the nations of Moab and Ammon. Abraham moves to Gerar, where the Philistine king Amalek takes Sarai, or Sarah, we actually see Sarah right now, who was presented as Abraham's sister, to his palace. In the dream, Yodevah warns Amalek that he will die unless he returns the woman to her husband. Abraham explains that he feared he would be killed over the beautiful Sarah. Okay. And that was a little lie that he said, because Sarah was not his complete sister. She was a half sister. Yodevah remembers his promise to Sarah and gives her and Abraham a son who is named Yitzhak, which means he will laugh. And it's interesting that she called him what she did, and she doubted Yodevah's ability to do what he says. And we all got to watch that. God can do anything. We can't. All right. So Isaac is circumcised at the age of 8 days. That's when you're supposed to be. Abraham is 100 years old and Sarah 90 at their child's birth. Well, you talk about a miracle. Someone 100 years old and his wife 90 and having a child, that's definitely a miracle, folks. Anyway, Hagar and Ishmael are banished from Abraham's home and wander in the desert. Yodevah hears the cry of the dying lad and saves his life by showing his mother a well. Amalek makes a treaty with Abraham at Beersheba, where Abraham gives him 7 sheep. That's interesting. 7 sheep as a sign of their truce. So Yodevah tests Abraham's devotion by commanding him to sacrifice Isaac on Mount Moriah, the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. So that Temple Mount area is where traditionally is understood that Abraham sacrificed Isaac. And so Isaac is bound and placed on the altar, and Abraham raises the knife to slaughter his son. And so I tell you, most people would not have done this. They would have thought that God was crazy to ask to kill my son. But Abraham trusted God. And so we got to learn how to have that trust that Abraham had. And so he was rewarded for that trust. So a voice from heaven calls to stop him. A ram caught in the undergrowth by his horns is offered in Isaac's place. And so what happened with Isaac, Messianic Jews understand this as well as believers, that I was a future event that pointed to the ultimate sacrifice of Yeshua, because, God said, hey, now I know you would not withhold your only son from me. And of course, those words should resonate. And what the Father did, he Gave his only son, sacrificed his only son for us. So let's go to the Torah section. So this is in this week's Torah reading. God promises Abraham a child to Abraham and Sarai, or Sarah, despite childless Sarah's advanced age. This week's Torah describes a similar incident that occurred many years later. The prophet Elijah assuring an elderly childless woman that she will bear a child. The Torah discusses two miracles performed by the prophet Elijah. The first miracle involved a widow who was heavily in debt, and her creditors were threatening to take her two sons as slaves to satisfy the debt. When the prophet asked her what she had in her home, the widow responded that she had nothing but a vial of oil. Elijah told her to gather as many empty containers as possible, borrowing from neighbors and friends as well. She should then pour oil from her vial into the empty containers. She did as commanded, and miraculously the oil continued to flow until the last empty jug was filled. The woman sold the oil for a handsome profit and had enough money to repay her debts and live comfortably. The second miracle, Elijah would often pass by the city of Shunem, where he would dine and rest at the home of a certain hospitable couple. This couple even made a special addition to their home, a guest room designated for Elijah's use. When the prophet learned that the couple was childless, he blessed the woman that she should give birth to a child in exactly 1 year's time. And indeed, 1 year later, a son was born to the aged couple. A few years later, the son complained of a headache and died shortly thereafter. The Shunammite woman laid the lifeless body on the bed in Elijah's designated home and quickly summoned the prophet. Elijah hurried to the woman's home and miraculously brought the boy to life. And so that's a wonderful story of Yodevahe's miracle work. But we can't doubt that God can do anything and get ourselves in trouble when we do that. And so let me go to the Bible here. I'm going to pull it up. I'm going to cover a few scriptures here. See if there's any questions. I don't get that. He was told later on not to sacrifice him. Well, it was a test. It was a test to see that, remember, Yeshua stated we can't love our children or our wives more so than him. Well, that was an example of it right there. I mean, if God can tell us to do whatever he wants. He created life. He can exterminate it. Only God has that right. He created us. He can exterminate us. Just like, let me show you in the Bible what Job said and what he understood. We can't question the creator. I mean, he's the creator. He knows more than us. And when we start acting like we know more than him, which is a derivative of sin, whenever we sin, we're actually telling God, we know more than you. Our way is better than your way, which is impossible because he's the creator. And so anyway, in Job, so Job chapter 2, actually chapter 1. And so all this, his children were wiped out, his property and everything. And so he's sitting down, devastated. And he says, naked came I out of my mother's womb. It says right here. And so when all this happened, instead of getting mad at God, like a lot of people have in this situation, it says, then Job rose and rent his mantle and shaved his head and fell down upon the ground and worshiped and said, naked came out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return hither. The Lord gave, or Yodevahe gave, and Yodevahe has taken away. So he can give, he can take away. That is his right. Blessed be the name of the master. And then here's the incredible verse here. And all this Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly. And then another character trait when his wife went nuts because God allowed the devil to curse him at his flesh. And then right here, his wife went nuts and stated she suggested this. Then said his wife, and she lost her mind here, then said his wife unto him, does thou still retain thy integrity? Curse God. And so his wife told him to curse God and die. What kind of wife is that? But anyway, verse 10, so of course he had to correct her when she went nuts, but he said unto her, thou speakest as one of the foolish women. I agree. Speaker, what? Shall we receive good at the hand of God, and shall we not receive evil? Yeah. And all this did Job sin with his lips. And let's understand something, folks. Do any of us deserve to live? Anybody want to put the answer to that question in the comments? Do any of us deserve to live, folks? Do any of us deserve to live at this point? Ever since what happened in the garden, do any of us deserve to live 1 second? Anybody want to answer? Anybody still there? Right. But none of us deserve to live. Right. None of us deserve to live. So if God wants to wipe us out, that's his prerogative. It's like you said, Sebastian, it's because of his mercy that we are all alive. There's only one human being that deserved to live. There's only one human being that did not have to die. And I guess you know who that is, right? Yeshua Messiah, or as he's commonly known today, Jesus Christ. He's the one that did not deserve to die and would not have died if he didn't allow it, because he never sinned. Only through sin caused death. So none of us deserve to live. That's the reason why it's God's right if he wants to wipe us out. He can wipe us out all he wants, but it's only because of his great mercy that he allows us to live. Because we all, without Yeshua, would be under the death penalty. So let's understand that. All right. So let's get back to the Bible here. So let's go to Genesis chapter 18. And so I love this little exchange between God and Abraham. And this was God in his pre-existent form, Yeshua himself, before he became a human being. Genesis 18, because he said no one saw the Father. So it wasn't the Father. Who was it that Abraham saw? Just like in John chapter 18, he said, your father Abraham understood my day. I'm just paraphrasing what he said. So Genesis 18, verse 22, and the men turned their faces from hence and went into Sodom. But Abraham stood yet before God. So Abraham drew near and said, will thou also, and this is interesting, and this is somewhat prophetic, will thou also destroy the righteous with the wicked? Peradventure, there be 50 righteous within the city. Will thou also destroy and not spare the place for the 50 righteous that are there? That be far from thee to do after this manner, to slay the righteous with the wicked, and that the righteous should be as the wicked that be far from thee. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right? And the Lord said, if I find in Sodom 50 righteous, so it starts out with 50, so 50 righteous within the city, then I will spare all the place for their sakes. And Abraham answered and said, behold, now I have taken upon me to speak unto the master, which I am but dust and ashes. And that's what Job realized toward the end of the book of Job. But he didn't realize that prior to that, and that was his sin. He felt he was self-righteous, and he thought he was on the same level of God, and he wasn't. And so he got knocked down. So anyway, that's not a Bible study. Genesis 18, verse 20, peradventure there shall lack 5 of the 50 righteous. Will thou destroy all the city for lack of 5? So he said, if I find there 45. So now it's 50. I want you to know 50. And then it's 45. Now, this is in the context of Sodom and Gomorrah, which Yeshua states in these end times, the social conditions will be similar to the days of Noah and Lot. So anyway, verse 29, he spake unto him yet again and said, peradventure there be 40 found there. So he won't destroy the city. He won't destroy Sodom and Gomorrah if there were 50, if there were 45, if there were 40. Okay, so we're not done yet. All right. So this is amazing that he can have a conversation like him. That's why Yodevahi stated that Abraham is his friend. And that I gave a Bible study on that last week. Verse 30. And he said unto him, oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak. Peradventure there shall be 30 found. Okay, so now we have 50, 45, 40, and then he drops down to 30. And he said, I will not do it if I find 30 there. And then in verse 31, and he said, behold, now I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord, peradventure there shall be 20 found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for 20's sake. Okay, so we have 50, 45, 40, 30, and 20 of the population of Sodom and Gomorrah. If it's any of those numbers, then he will not destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. All right, so verse 32, and he said, oh, let the Lord not be angry, and I will speak yet but this once, peradventure 10. If there's 10, and he said, I will not destroy for 10's sake. All right, so that was it. So it's 50, 45, 40, 30, 20, and then 10. And so we know what happened. There was not 10 righteous people in Sodom and Gomorrah. There were only what? When you really think about it, Lot, his wife, his 2 kids, were actually Lot's wife turned out not to be so righteous, right? And so you had him and his 2 daughters. So only 3. Only 3 were righteous, and their lives were preserved. Now, why am I talking about this? Well, because we got to understand something, folks. We got to understand how wicked this world is now. And I don't think people really understand how wicked it really is. But it's very wicked. All right. And in Luke chapter 17, he states here about the time of his second coming, which we are living in that generation here. He says right here, first of all, there won't be any secret coming that a lot of people in Christianity believe is going to happen. He says, for as the lightning that lighteth out of one part of the heaven shineth into the other under heaven, so shall also the Son of Man be in his day. So people are going to see him come that are alive. But first must he suffer many things and be rejected of that generation that he was in the first century. Verse 26, and as it was in the days of Noah. So now he's prophesying. Now he's connecting the days of Noah. As you're going to see, he's also connecting the days of Lot, because he stated out of his own mouth. Whenever you see the red letter, that's why I like using the King James Version. Red letters is directly coming out of his mouth. And as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it also be in the days of the Son of Man, his second coming. They did eat, they drank, they married wives. In other words, there's something wrong in the marriages they were doing. They were given in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark and the flood came and destroyed them all. So likewise, so similarly, so obviously the days of Lot were similar to the days of Noah. Likewise, also as it was in the days of Lot, they did eat, they drank, they bought, sold, they planted, they built. But the same day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven, just like the picture that I have for the thumbnail for this program, and destroyed them all. Now, here's the prophecy. Even thus shall it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. Okay, so let's do a little midrash on this. So there's a lot in this. And when you take a look at the perversion of Genesis chapter 6, Bereshit, when it reveals that the whole world was corrupted. There was a population explosion. And then we have to put the days of Lot in there. And also, just like the woman quoted in the, I was going to go to that, Ezekiel chapter 16, we need to get a clear definition of what the sins of Sodom is, because most people just think it's homosexuality. So let's go to Ezekiel chapter 16. Ezekiel chapter 16. So we don't need anything other than the word of God to explain to us what the sins of Sodom are. And I'm going to go over them in detail here. In verse 49, behold, this was the iniquity of thy sister Sodom. First, we had pride. We have pride. What was the first sin ever committed? What was it? What was it about? It was pride. Ezekiel 28. If you read that, the devil thought too much of himself. He was a beautiful creation, and he thought so highly of himself. So pride is the first sin of Sodom. The second one is fullness of bread. We have too much. The United States is an example of that. We have so much food that in each restaurant, if you are poor, what I would do, I would go to a restaurant, around the restaurant, in the garbage can. There's plenty of wasted food in that garbage can that I would go and eat that food. And that's what many people do today. We're so filthy rich, this country, that we have food to throw away. So that's what that means. Abundance of idleness. For fullness of bread to be a sin is wasted, it's being wasted. Okay? And abundance of idleness. This is iniquity. So if abundance of idleness is iniquity, then it must be abundance of laziness, laying around, doing nothing. And some people may get offended by saying, well, you're getting offended in a wicked way, because this is a corrected statement. Many people in this country are overweight. 70% are overweight. Not only in this country, but in other Western nations are overweight. Some are overweight in non-Western nations, but the majority of big people, you're not going to find too many big people in all those African in Sudan and those other areas where you see, unfortunately, flies flying up in a poor African's nose or ears or whatever. You don't see them being big and fat, but you see a lot of Americans and a lot of Britons and people in France and so forth, very, very big people. Okay. And a part of that, the reason why that's the case too, is because there's abundance of idleness. We live in a push button society today. We don't want to exercise. We don't want to stay in shape. And I guarantee you, our Lord and Savior was in top shape. He kept himself in shape. And if people want to know how to eat like Yeshua ate or Jesus, get this book called What Would Jesus Eat? What Would Jesus Eat? Again, what would Jesus eat? It was written by a doctor, for those who start to doubt the credibility of it. Don't, because it was written by a medical doctor, okay, who still has a practice. It's a very well-written book, and you're going to learn how to eat by following Yeshua's example. All right, abundance of items. This is the third sin. What's the fourth one? Did not strengthen the hand of the poor and needy. If you read anything about what the Jews have taught about this, that's one of the key characteristics of the sins of Sodom, that they were stingy. They did not want to help the poor or help those who were in need. So you're being a sodomite if you have a bad case of pride. You have an overabundance of goods and don't want to give it to anybody, being stingy. And then you're lazy, don't want to exercise, don't want to keep yourself in shape. And not only being lazy physically, but mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and spiritually. You can't be idle. God didn't create us to be that way. And then, of course, he mentions pride again, because it's such a problem. It was the first sin committed, pride. And they were haughty and committed abomination. Now, that abomination certainly includes all the sex sins listed here in Leviticus chapter 18. Let's go there. Leviticus chapter 18. All these unlawful sexual relations that unfortunately is going on as I speak all over the place, particularly in the Western nations. And so we're not supposed to touch the nakedness of our father. That means, their nakedness, not to uncover that, and the sister, daughter, all that. Okay, you're not supposed to, your aunt, your uncles, all that, your grandfather, your grandmother, all that. It covers all that. Your near kin, your first cousins. And verse 22, thou shalt not lie with mankind, as with womankind. It is an abomination. And so these are all the things that were committed in the Sodom and Gomorrah environment, in the Noah environment, because Yeshua equated them of being similar. So this was done in the days of Noah, as it was also in the days of Lot. All these sins were being committed. And there was great violence among the earth in both cases. So homosexuality is condemned by God. And then this is condemned, and unfortunately, this is going on too, where you have human beings having sex with animals. Neither shall thou lie with any beast to defile thyself. Neither shall any woman stand before a beast to lie down there, and it is confusion. Defile. Now, see, here's what people don't understand. When you do these type of sexual sins, you're defiling yourself spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. Defile not yourselves in any of these things. For in all these the nations are defiled, which I cast out before you. And so, how to apply this today? We don't associate with these people. We don't yoke with them. When I say these people, I'm making a distinction between the way they're living and the way we're living. Not that we're better than them, but God's way of life is better than them, better than the devil's way of life. And so that's the kind of life we want to lead. And the land, and the Hebrew word for land is eretz, it means earth, is defiled. And so the earth is certainly defiled. And in this particular juncture, at this time period when it was written, that particular area of land was defiled. Therefore, I do visit. And so what Yodevahi does, he visits the sin thereof upon it. And the land, or the earth itself, vomit out her inhabitants. Okay, and he wants us to keep his statutes and his judgments. And you shall not commit any of these abominations, neither any of your own nations, nor any stranger that sojourns among you. So any person that comes over and wants to be a citizen, they cannot commit these abominations. So anyway, so let's go over the sins of Sodom again. Take a pencil, write these down. Pride. Fullness of bread, so much so that you don't want to share it with others, or you waste it. Abundance of idleness, being lazy, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. All right. Failure to want to help out the poor and the needy. Of course, pride. And then abomination, which includes sexual abomination. So those are all the sins of Sodom. If you do any of those things on a consistent basis, then you are a sodomite. And you don't have to be a homosexual to be a sodomite. You can be prideful. You can be stingy. You can be extremely lazy. You don't want to do nothing. Don't want to read. Don't want to apply yourself. Don't want to exercise. Don't want to do the things you know you need to do. It can be anything. But if you procrastinate and you want, and it can be anything. I'm just giving examples. Procrastination is a sin. You can't procrastinate. All right, so those are the sins, and those are the sins that will be prevalent in these end times. In 2 Timothy chapter 3. So in this passage of scripture, it covers all those sins of sodomy here. This know also that in the last days perilous times shall come. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud. Just mention that, right? Blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady-heighted, lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying the power or the Holy Spirit thereof. And we're supposed to avoid these people. Of course, you can't avoid them if you're working with them, unless, of course, they get to a point where they're trying to kill you or trying to do some other sin, then you have to get away from them literally. But as long as they leave their sins to themselves and you're just working, that's fine, okay, with them. So anyway, getting back to Luke chapter 17. And so we're living in an age now where all these sins are being committed. All right. And he says, but the same day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone. So it'll be a surprise when all these things, destructions, nuclear bombs and all that, most people are going to be shocked when those things happen. And so he relates this, of course, this is tribulation language. You can check this out with Matthew chapter 24. He says, in that day, he which shall be on the housetop and on the stuff. And if you know anything about the way Jerusalem is constructed, the way that people live, many of them have housetops where they go up and they have, it's an additional part of the home, and his stuff in the house, and let him not come down to take it away, and he that is in the field, let him likewise not return back. He says, remember Lot's wife. So this is, of course, during the start of the tribulation, and this can be verified by looking at Matthew chapter 24 and studying it. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it's very important not to get wrapped up in the sins of Sodom. And it's interesting that he mentioned pride, because pride was the first sin committed ever. And the devil is the one that committed that sin. And so we got to watch it with the pride, and I run across people that have that problem. They get prideful and they don't want to be corrected and all that. And it's just very difficult to teach people that have that attitude. Anyway, Proverbs 13, verse 10, only by pride comes contention. That's interesting. That's what let's see what the JPS states here. Proverbs 13, verse 10. By pride, it says the same thing. By pride cometh only contention. By pride only comes contention, but with the well-advised is wisdom. And so we got to watch it. The pride is thinking you're something when you're nothing. I know I'm a nothing, okay? I'm a nothing before God. I'm not anything before any other human beings. I'm the same like you. I have to use the toilet like you. The only thing that makes me appear to be better is if I'm keeping God's way of life, which is not really me being better, it's God being better. His way of life is better than our way of life or the devil's way of life. And so we have to remember that. If we don't remember that, then we're going to get ourselves in trouble. And you don't want that. All right. So anyway, I wanted to, let me see if I can find this here. See if there's any questions here. All right. Everybody still awake? I guess so. All right. Got 7 people on here. Okay. So, all right. So what I want to show you guys, if I can find the email here. Let me see if I can find it. Let's see if I can find it here. All right. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me still? Can you type in there? I want to make sure you guys can hear me. Okay. You guys must be asleep. Okay. So anyway, someone knocked off. All right. So anyway, the Messianic Prophecy Bible. Let me pull this up here. Messianic Bible. Okay. Thanks, Michelle. Let me know. All right, I'm almost done here. This is something that's going to be monumental. This is a Bible that is claiming to be hopefully the most accurate Bible ever translated from the original manuscript. And I've been in contact with these people for several years, and they sent an email to me, and of course I can't find the email. But anyway, let me just read this to you. And they're supposed to be coming out with this Bible next summer or next spring. And I've been in communication with them. They're going to send me a copy. I really believe it's prophetic that this book is going to be distributed in April of 2023. That's just my personal belief. But it says, why the need for this Bible? Today, there are more than 100 English versions of the Tanakh. That's another way of saying the Old Testament. That's a Jewish way of saying the Old Testament that have been translated from the original Hebrew Bible. Trying to understand the differences between them is a study all its own. So why do we believe another version is needed? Nearly all Christian Bibles are translated from either a Christian bias, trying to import the New Testament ideologies and Yeshua into the Hebrew Bible, or the Jewish English Bibles minimalize Messianic passages, trying to keep the Messiah out. Now, let me explain that one sentence there, all right? Yes, I agree. There are some biases in both cases. But if you take and look up the original words, then those biases won't be a factor. Okay. So, but anyway, as far as the Old Testament is concerned, this Bible should be able to clear that up. Okay. And so bias is a hazard when approaching Bible translation. I agree. It is such a minefield that Dr. Philip Noss, a consultant with the American Bible Society, gave this warning. I quote, Bible translation is never innocent. There's always motivation for translation. Inevitably, there are implications and consequences to the act of translation. And so not only do I find this in translations, and it's not, okay, I don't want you guys thinking, oh, the whole Bible can't be translated. No, there's few errors, but those errors can be significant if you don't understand how to look up the original words and how to verify the clarity of the text by doing that. You don't have to look up every single word in its original language. The Bible wasn't translated that bad, but there are certain areas of translation that both parties have been guilty of not translating it clearly because of their biases. And so it says right here, our motivation for producing the Messianic Prophecy Bible is not theologically biased. Our translators are working to produce a text, and that's very important. Our translators are working to produce a text that is as close to the most ancient manuscripts as possible, while maintaining the meanings of phrases and their nuances during the time they were written. So this is very important, very significant. And this is something that I've been desiring for years, and it's going to make me be able to teach you a lot easier than what I'm doing. I wouldn't have to do as much work. But anyway, our desire is to help both Jewish and Christian readers understand the text better, not only through the translation, but also through the notes. So there's going to be notes. And so the footnotes will help readers understand where there are difficulties of translation and why. It also will give alternative translations of particularly difficult verses and passages. This will give the reader the ability to see various viewpoints and come to their own conclusions. And that's good. You need to have all the facts, right, before you come to your conclusions. And so really the purpose of this too is to explain the reason why some Jews, but many Christians believe that Yeshua is a Messiah through the Tanakh. Okay? So the coming of the Messiah is central to both Judaism and Christianity. There are numerous passages that are considered messianic by both Judaism and Christianity. We will present both Jewish and Christian interpretations of these messianic scriptures. The Bible will help all readers understand that there are various ways to view these messianic passages. They will be presented, and that's how you determine what's true and what's false. You have both cases, and then you can decide. They will be presented as a discussion, not a debate, because it's a sin to debate without trying to come to a common ground. Just like that's one of the reasons why I hate politics. I've seen many debates, political debates, And it's all based on, okay, I believe this. I'm not going to change. I don't care how you feel. I don't care if the facts are presented. I'm going to always be this way. I'm not going to change. Well, that is not a debate that you should be participating in if you're not willing to be changed or be corrected. All right. And so, anyway, they're not going to present this as a debate, but as a discussion to help you come to the truth through facts. It is important to learn how others see Messianic prophecy from their perspective viewpoints and in their own words. So to achieve this, we're having both Jewish scholars and rabbis working alongside. Now, this has never been done before, as far as I know, but they're going to have Jewish scholars and rabbis working alongside Christian Messianic scholars to present the understanding of the prophecies from within their own communities. Each Messianic prophecy will be explained with commentary from both viewpoints. Okay, so this is very valuable, ladies and gentlemen, to have this. And so I wanted to show you something else here. You guys can read the rest of this on your own, but I'm just going to show you some of the things that's going to be a part of this Bible. They ought to thank me for plugging their Bible, but but I'm going to do it because it's a significant, I believe, for prophetic event for this book to come out. I think is in the spring. That's what they're saying. They're also going to have an online version of it, and they're going to have it translated in different languages, okay? Because Jewish people realize that a lot of people don't understand Hebrew, and they have to understand it in the language that they are familiar with. All right, so anyway, an international editorial team of Jewish scholars and rabbis work alongside Christian Messianic scholars to ensure that the Messianic Prophecy Bible is accurate historically, culturally, archaeologically, prophetically, theologically, apologetically, which means defending the faith, and stylistically cohesive, okay? So special features. Threaded through our Bible will be numerous articles on a variety of themes and topics, along with the Messianic prophecy. We will have articles on Messianic illustrations like the Akedah, the binding of Isaac, or the life of Joseph, Theophanies, okay? Theophanies, rather. Times when God appeared in physical form. Themes like redemption, ritual purity, and deliverance. Word studies and phrases, or idioms, or Jewish slang, or slangs, okay, that get lost in translation. Character profiles found throughout the Bible. The miracles, stories of deliverance, and so much more. Theophanies, right? It's theophanies. That's a word I usually don't use too often. Individual books arranged in a traditional order. See, many people don't realize that the order in the King James is not the original order of the books, okay? Arranged, and I haven't done a Bible study on that. Arranged in the traditional order to Tanakh, Hebrew Old Testament, making it more familiar to Jewish readers. Special sections highlighting fulfilled Messianic prophecies. Hebrew spelling of names with the English equivalent following. Remember, English equivalent, okay? Notes explaining the archaeological, cultural, linguistic, theological background of the difficult to understand passages. Charts and summaries detailing Jewish historical, ritual, and doctrinal issues. Book introductions, giving time and place, major themes, and outlines. So I'm looking forward to this book, folks. So what languages will be available? The Bible will be translated from the most ancient Hebrew text. And there's a little short lessons on translation, okay? The Dead Sea Scrolls, which is very valuable. More than likely, if you find a book in the Dead Sea Scrolls, then that book is verified to be an accurate book that should be in the Bible, okay? In some cases, not. I mean, the Apocrypha, some of that is found, but that doesn't mean because it's in the Dead Sea Scrolls that Yodevahi approves that to be in scriptures. So that's not a Bible study. But anyway, the Aleppo Codex, the Leningrad Codex into Egypt. One of the things you got to understand about the Apocrypha, it was done after the prophet Malachi. So between the prophet of Malachi and John the Baptist, there was no prophets, okay? There was no inspired writings. And that's when the Apocrypha was written. That's what people need to understand. So anyway, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Aleppo Codex, the Leningrad Codex into English, Arabic, Russian, Spanish, Italian, French, German, Portuguese, Turkish, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, and Indonesia. So those are the languages that's going to be translated into. And it's going to be based on the Dead Sea Scrolls, the most ancient Hebrew text in existence. So this is a little lesson in translation. As far as the Old Testament is concerned, you have the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Aleppo Codex, and the Leningrad Codex. So those are the three oldest translations of the original Tanakh, Old Testament, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Aleppo Codex, and the Leningrad Codex. Okay, and they're going to be translated into English, Arabic, Russian, Spanish, Italian, French, German, and these are from Jews, by the way, Portuguese, Turkish, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, and Indonesian. And so we're creating translation software so that the Bible can be translated into every possible language. For those who are sacred namers, wake up. God is not just concerned about understanding what his original name is. He's concerned about all languages because he created all languages. And so these are from Jews, this Bible translation from Jewish people. Those who believe in Yeshua and those who don't, we are creating translation software so that the Bible can be translated into every possible language. So God is he's not discriminatory against one language. If you guys don't understand that, you need to do some serious soul searching. So this Bible will not be sold in stores for profit. Thank God for that. It will be widely distributed to outreach organizations and given away for free. Now that's the way it should be. As an evangelistic tool with the goal of getting it into the homes of 13 million unsaved Jewish people worldwide. And it's not just Jewish people that aren't saved. There's many people that call themselves Christians aren't saved either, But anyway, I just want to put that in there. Currently, there are 5.3 million Jewish people in Israel and 5.5 million people in the United States. So the most regions that most Jews are living in are in the land of Israel and in the United States, which I find very fascinating prophetically. That's another Bible study. But anyway, in addition, the Bible will be available at the raw printing cost for Christians who want to know more about the Jewish roots of their faith. And so it won't be free for Christians, but most Bibles aren't free, folks. So anyway, for Christians, it says, buy the truth and sell it not. There certainly is a prophecy about the Bible. For Christians who want to know more about the Jewish roots of their faith, it will be an excellent tool to equip the body of Messiah to share the gospel with both Jews and Gentiles. Our polls show that 55% of Jewish people come to know Yeshua as their Messiah through the Messianic prophecies. And therefore, we believe that many non-Jewish people, that's who Gentiles are, will also come into the saving grace of Yeshua when reading the Messianic prophecy Bible. By the way, this is an organization that, of course, believes that Yeshua is a Messiah. And they have a lot of helpful prophecies and articles in here to help you get a deeper understanding of the Tanakh. So I would encourage you to go to this website and learn from it. But I just had to tell you that, ladies and gentlemen, because that book is going to be very helpful. Let me see if there's any questions about it. And so, yeah, well, it may be in this case because they're taking so long. This has been almost, I think, 10 years. They've been doing this for 10 years. So obviously they really are being careful. And they want to make sure that this is the most accurate translation that it was ever done. And so for them to take this long, I think God has his hand in it. And so it's going to be a helpful tool, certainly for teachers, certainly for evangelizing the Jews and showing them the difference and helping them understand that Yeshua must be the Messiah. You have, I'm not going to give his name, but you have someone going around teaching that the King James Version is mostly corrupted and which is not true. And that you have to understand Hebrew to truly understand the Bible. That's not true either. And so, when you have stuff like that, you have to have, especially him, this book will refute what he says. Now, for those who don't want to wait for the book, I would suggest you go to Dr. Michael Brown's The Real Messiah. You just type in Real Messiah, and he has I have his whole series of books that I bought personally in my library that refutes each argument by Jews to say that Yeshua is not the Messiah. And so, matter of fact, this individual, Dr. Michael Brown, he debated Tovia Singer mention his name. He's the anti-missionary, and he has successfully debated him. I'm not saying it because I'm favoring Christianity, but I'm saying it because he did. he presented the facts and he did. Okay, so plain and simple as that. And so, yeah, I know they are. Yep, things are getting worse, ladies and gentlemen. But, the good news is that I don't think we're going to have too much time left before the Messiah comes back. And so I can't tell you when, but so let's go over quickly the some scriptures in the New Testament here, and then we're going to get off here. All right, so Luke chapter 1. Luke chapter 1. So we have the situation here where John the Baptist was conceived here, and it says here, and behold, thy cousin Elizabeth, she have also conceived. So this is on the concept of miracle births here. A son in her old age, which is a miracle birth. And this is the 6th month with her, who was called barren. For with God nothing shall be. And see, this is what we got to understand. See, I'm working with one individual that doesn't seem to understand this. Okay. For with God nothing shall be impossible. You got to believe that, folks. There's been many things happening to me. The fact that I got all these degrees, believe me, I'd be a fool to say God had nothing to do with it, because he did. I still can't believe I got all these degrees. And I never thought that I would be in this situation, but I really believe that this is what God rewarded me. He knew back then when I was 20, what a great sacrifice I made to just allow my dad, or I didn't allow, he forced me out of his house, and I didn't have nowhere to go. And so I was impoverished immediately when that happened. And so I'm looking later on in my life, and now he's equipped me with the tools not to be impoverished. And so, again, that all, I don't take any credit at all. God gave me the ability and the willingness to do that. It all came from God. And so that's one example of the many that I can give you in my own personal life, where I can actually say that, yeah, with God, nothing is impossible. Nothing is impossible with God. And verse 38, and Mary said, behold, the handmaid of the Lord. And see, what I love about Mary, she didn't argue and fight. She yielded to him. She said, be it done. I'm the handmaid of the Lord. Be unto me according to thy word. And the angel departed from her. And Mary rose in those days and went into the hill country with haste into the city of Yehuda. Okay. And entered into the house of Zacharias and saluted Elizabeth. And it came to pass that when Elizabeth heard the salutation of Mary, the baby, and people that say that the baby in a womb is not a human being, well, this is one verse that tears that theory into shreds. The babe leaped in her womb. So that was John the Baptist leaping, because he had the Holy Spirit from the womb. And so he leaped in the womb when he heard the salutation of Mary. And Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Spirit. And she spoke out with a loud voice and said, blessed thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb. So when it talks about the fruit of thy womb, it's talking about children. Verse 43. And whence is this to me, that the mother of my Lord should come to me? For lo, as soon as the voice of thy salutation sounded in my ears, here we go, the babe leaped. So for the babe to leap, the babe must have intelligence. It must have life. And so when people murder babies from the womb, they are committing murder. That is wrong. Killing is wrong in most cases. Anyway, verse 45. And blessed is she that believe, for there shall be a performance of those things which were told her from the master. Incredible. So Luke chapter 24. Now we're talking about the resurrection here. Verse 36. And as they thus spoke, Yeshua himself stood in the midst of them. So this is when he was resurrected. So this is certainly covering the miracle work of Yodevahe here, because it was a miracle that he was resurrected. And as they thus spoke, Yeshua himself stood in the midst of them and said, peace, peace unto you. He didn't say war unto you. He said peace. So he's about peace. But verse 37, but they were terrified and frightened and supposed that they had seen a spirit. Okay. And that simply is something that has no substance, no form. Okay. And he said unto them, why are you troubled? And why do your thoughts arise in your hearts? Behold my hands and feet, that it is I myself. Handle me and see, for a spirit, and a spirit is something that has no substance. It's just, there. Well, he's not a ghost. Some people translate that ghost. He has a spiritual body, okay, which is explained in 1 Corinthians chapter 15. Has not flesh and bones as you have seen me, but he appeared right before them. So when you are changed like he is, you'll have a spiritual body. That spiritual body can go through walls, can appear or disappear, okay? And so, and when he had thus spoken, he showed them his hands and his feet. And while they yet believed not for joy and wondered, he said unto them, have you any food? I think this is food, isn't it? Yeah, I guess, meat in that context is meat. And they gave him a piece of broiled fish. And that's interesting too, because I think God really loves fish, because in almost every case in the Gospels, when he's talking about meat, there's fish. And they gave him fish. And they gave him a piece of broiled fish and a honeycomb. And he took it and did eat before them. And so, of course, when you're resurrected, you can still eat. And he said unto them, these are the words which I spake unto you while I was yet with you, that all things must be fulfilled. Now, this is how you can tell, because this is the structure that the Tanakh is written in. You have the first 5 books of the Bible, the Law of Moses, and the prophets. Okay, so I have my Tanakh right here. When I look into it, it's organized the way Yeshua is saying here. And so you have the Law of Moses, which is called Torah, is Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. And then you have the prophets, the Nevi'im, okay? Which you have Joshua, Judges, 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, 1 Kings, 2 Kings, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel. And then you have the 12, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. And then you have the Ketuvim, you have the Nevi'im, and then you have the Ketuvim, which are the writings. Okay, and so the Psalms are the writings. So it begins with the book of Psalms. And so right here, you can look at a Jewish study Bible or any Bible, and the order is verified. Yeshua talked about the order that is verified by you look at any Tanakh. It's the same order. All right, so, and then verse 45, then open he their understanding. So God has to open your understanding, whether you know Hebrew, Greek, or Aramaic. He has to open your mind to understand the Bible. You can be a Bible scholar and study all kinds of things, but you won't understand the Bible fully unless you have his spirit in you to open your mind. Then open he their understanding, that they might understand the scriptures. And he said unto them, thus it is written, and thus it behooved Messiah to suffer and to rise from the dead the 3rd day, and that repentance and removal of sins should be preached in his name among everyone, not just the Jewish people, but everyone, beginning at Yerushalayim, or Jerusalem. And you are witnesses of these things. And behold, I send the promise of my Father unto you, but wait ye in the city of Jerusalem until you be endowed with power from on high. And he led them out as far as to Bethany, and he lifted up his hands and blessed them. And it came to pass, while he blessed them, he was parted from them and carried up into heaven. And they worshiped him and returned to Jerusalem with great joy, and were continually in the temple praising and blessing Yodevahe. Amen. And so let's go to 2 Peter. 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 4 to 11. So this is talking about what happened during the time of Sodom and Gomorrah. For if God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them to hell, or in a place of constraint. That's what that word means. Okay. So this word hell doesn't mean a place where you snap, crackling, and pop. It's taru. Okay. And it means no, that's Greek mythology. But this is a status of being in a place of restraint. Okay. So that's what that is. All right. And delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment. And spared not the old world, but saved Noah, the eighth person, a preacher. Oops. What happened? Let me go back here. Fried whiting. Okay. Let me go back. I don't know what happened to my Bible here. Okay, here we go. Let me get back here. Okay, you guys should be able to see. There we go. All right, there we go. All right, almost done here. 2 Peter chapter 2. So they're in a place of restraint right now, reserved unto judgment. And he spared not the old world, but saved Noah, the eighth person, a preacher of righteousness. That's what he did. He preached for how many years? 120 years. And nobody listened to him except the 6 people that went along with him. A preacher of righteousness, or the 7 people, bringing in the flood upon the world of the ungodly, and turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemned them with an overflow, making an example. This is an example unto those that should live ungodly. They will be destroyed. And delivered just Lot, vexed with the filthy conversation of the wicked. For that righteous man dwelling among them and seeing and hearing vexed his. Now, what does it mean that he was vexed? Let's take a look here. He was torturized by all the filth. And I tell you, if I was around that, I would be torturized too by all that, what was going on, all those sins of Sodom. And hearing vex his righteous soul from day to day with their unlawful deeds. The Lord knows how to deliver the ungodly out of the temptations, and to reserve the unjust unto the day of judgment to be punished. But chiefly them that walk after the flesh in the lust of uncleanness and despise government. See, I run across people like this too. They don't want to be led. They don't respect authorities. And that is certainly has something to do with being a sodomite, when you don't want to follow authority. Despise government. So this is in the context of that. Presumptuous are they. Self-willed. They are not afraid to speak evil, which is doing Lashon Hara. Okay. Speak evil of dignitaries. That's Lashon Hara. Whereas angels, which are greater in power and might, bring not railing accusation against them before the Lord. What an example. What an example. All right, so we got to learn, ladies and gentlemen, not to be that way. All right, let me see if people have fallen asleep. Any questions? Don't tell me you don't know nothing about that fish. What fish? What, the fish that I talked about that Yeshua ate? What about it? What about the fish? Tell me about the fish. Okay, Gail, you're still there. Good. All right. What about the fish? Smiley one. All right. Well, you tell my wife about it. I don't know if my wife is still with. Sheree, you still there? Okay. The whitings. What is that? You talking about clean fish versus white things? I don't know what you're talking about there. Fried fish. Okay, first of all, is that particular fish, is it clean? Is it kosher? Let me know. I haven't eaten any fried fish in a while. Oh, okay. No, I don't know about that, but you can. I tell you what. Why don't you fix something to him and send something to it? Me and my wife appreciate it. So let me do my little thing here. Vayera Adonai Yishmereka. May God bless and safeguard you. Yeah, Adonai Panav Ileka Bichaneka. I should have this memorized by now. May God show kindness and be gracious to you. Yisha Adonai Panav Ileka B'Yashem Laka Shalom. So may God turn his countenance to you and establish peace for you. One last thing I wanted to check, folks. Let me check on what's going on in the world right now, real quick. Yeah, go ahead and fix some fish for us. I'm good. Anyway, I know my wife would love it. I'm gonna start opening my home up soon. If the coronavirus continues to go down, I think we'll finally be able to meet each other in purpose. What I'm trying to say, in person, smiling one. So anyway, so let's take a look at what's going on in this crazy world here, real quick, before we leave here. Yep, I'm going to be doing a study about our people because I want to get to the bottom of biblically of why we struggle so much. I know there's a solution to that. But anyway, let me pull this up here. So bad news is good news. Wall Street greatly celebrates the latest economic and financial disasters. Okay, so anyway, I'm not going to go over that. And then, so you have all these stock market crashes here. This is what I want to get to because really the stock market, most people aren't really interested in that because it's a rich people market, basically. So anyway, in this ministry, we're not targeting just rich people. We're targeting everyone, no matter what your status is. So anyway, U.S. consumers will be spending much less this holiday season because many of them are already tapped out. That's unfortunate. This holiday season is certainly going to be far less jolly. Well, this ministry doesn't celebrate Christmas, folks. So, and for those who want to know why, just look at Jeremiah chapter 10. That should be the chapter that should convince you not to celebrate Christmas. But anyway, Jeremiah chapter 10. Another reason is that it's a lie. I mean, Yeshua was not born on December 25th, and there's no fat man called Santa Claus that goes down the chimney. You got to wonder, how in the world can he fit in these chimneys anyway? The few houses that do have them. Anyway, yesterday I detailed 11 signs that economic activity in the U.S. is rapidly declining. Well, today we have gotten even more bad news. Thanks to the deteriorating economic conditions, Americans plan to buy a lot less stuff this holiday season. In fact, one survey that was just released has discovered that approximately half the country plans to buy fewer things this year. All right. So 11 signs that the economic activity is plunging off a cliff. So have you noticed it too? There has been a dramatic shift in the economy in recent days. It's been sudden and it has been severe. All over the country, sales are falling like a rock. Inventories are piling up to alarming levels, and large companies are beginning to conduct mass layoffs. Perhaps it was inevitable that such a downturn would arrive, but the Federal Reserve has made things far worse by rapidly hiking interest rates. Every other time the Fed has engaged in such a rate hiking binge, it has resulted in a recession, and there is no way that we are going to escape unscathed this time around. The following are 11 signs that economic activity is plunging off, and you guys can click on that for more. It says, will a dark omen in election day be a sign of the United States on the eve of destruction? All right, so he's talking about the election and all that, and God's going to put in who he wants, so I'm not going to go through all that. All right, so that is that, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to go and eat me a nice chicken dinner. Yeah, I am too. I mean, it's such a lie. And when people try to challenge me on that, and this is some advice. If people try to challenge, okay, ask them, is there a Santa Claus? No. Okay. Well, doesn't God say that we shouldn't lie? And they're going to be speechless. And then they say, well, I don't want to practice lying. And why would God have anything to do with anything that's a lie? Okay, that'll get them to pause and they'll shut up probably, and they'll change the subject. And so that's what I start out with is the myth of Santa Claus. Then I get to the Christmas tree. Then I show them Jeremiah chapter 10, which is so obvious, and so-called scholars try to water that down and say it's not talking about what it's saying, but it is. Okay, and so that's what I do with the Christmas thing. And then also I have a nice little message that I'm going to play every year. It's on my podcast, and some subjects I think is appropriate just for audio, and certainly that subject, because I was quoting a good portion of scriptures and also outside sources to prove that Christmas is a fad, that it should not be observed. And it's on my podcast website. And I did that like at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning last year. And I was talking about why are these newscasters faking like there's Santa Claus in the sky getting ready to drop gifts off of people. And here they are, they're doing that NORAD, right? They're doing this to deceive children. It's ridiculous, Shalom. All right. Shalom, Gail. Shalom Aleichem. All right. So everybody, you guys have a pleasant Shabbat. And for those who participate in my Bible study at 11 o'clock, I'll see you tomorrow. Hang in there. It looks like God is giving us a break with this Russia crazy stuff that's going on right now. And so hopefully things are tied down. I'm not ready for a nuclear war here to come, but hey, you don't know. You don't know what God is planning. And so we got to be prepared. So may Yah bless and keep you, and Yah willing, my wife will be available for the women next Thursday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I'll be back this Friday, and I may surprise you with some other studies, so just stay tuned to the YouTube channel and have your alerts turned on. If you know how to do that, just type in the YouTube channel how to activate alerts so you'll be notified and when I come on and my wife. Take care. Shabbat Shalom.